In this video, I will explain 7 different types of homes in San Francisco that will trigger costs that an uninformed buyer will not expect. Okay, up first are Victorian and Edwardian homes, single-family homes or condos. These are hands down the most desirable homes. The majority of home buyers out there, they do not want to live in new construction. They want that SF charm. They live in San Francisco. They want to just have that great vibe. The interior and the exterior just look phenomenal. Sometimes they are a lot more expensive than a new construction home that's right next to it. For example, I'm helping a buyer right now who found me on social media buy her rental from her landlord. It's a 1900 build fourplex. She's going to buy one of the units. So we're doing a full inspection because she's responsible for 25% of all the deferred maintenance and all the issues, roof, foundation, electrical plant, all the things. You know, she's going to be responsible for 25% of that. And there was no inspection done. So we have an inspection contingency in place. We're doing a full inspection because she needs to know what she's in store for because she has to pay for 25% of all that deferred maintenance. And I'm not talking about things like out of date kitchens and bathrooms or, you know, gross floors that need to get retouched up or new paint. I'm talking about things like how much life does the roof have left on it? Are there any foundation issues? You know, what does the electrical and plumbing system look like? Those kind of things you don't know, even if you have lived in the building before, like the example I just gave. She's been living there for 5 years, but she doesn't know what's underneath, what's behind the scenes of that house. So those are the big things for deferred maintenance that you want to know about. You want to know about the roof, electrical, plumbing, foundation, seismic retrofitting, if any of it was done, and the pest inspection. In the climate that we live in here in San Francisco, it is very easy to attract a lot of mold and moisture, fungus, beetles, termites even. So it's really important that you know what is in the bones of that house. And obtaining insurance is not really easy if you've got these kind of issues. I'll give you an example. If it's got the older knob and tube electrical, it doesn't have the new electrical, insurance companies may pass and not even deal with it. Or some may give you a 90-day policy that says, hey, you have 90 days to get it corrected. I had some clients that I helped buy a triplex in Pacific Heights. They were renting it. So I'll give you a real example on the high side of what could happen. So my clients wanted to buy the whole triplex. It had old electrical in it, and they did get an insurance quote. It took a lot of digging, but they finally found one, and they charged them $18,000 a year until they got the electrical system upgraded. And once they did, the policy was going to drop down to $4,000 a year. The estimate to get the electrical done was between $100,000 and $120,000, and it was going to be about a 3-month job. And if you've seen my videos before, you know that we go in and we renovate homes for our clients. We'll pay for them up front, and all they do is pay us back after they sell the house. There's no interest, no fees. You know, we just do it so they could get more money on the sale. So these kind of things, we don't love to have these on our listings. We want to go in and do a lot of renovations so the buyers don't have to deal with this. You end up getting a 2 to 4x return if you spend the right kind of money doing the right type of renovations on a house before you sell it. Now, your monthly HOA fees is another thing. In fact, your lender is going to change your buying power based on the monthly HOA. So if you're looking for something that's got $500 a month, they could give you one price point. Let's say they give you a $2 million max purchase price. But if you go up to $1,500 or even $2,000 a month HOA, that number is going to drop down significantly. And I mentioned $2,000 a month because if you go into South Beach, for example, there's all these immaculate new construction high rises. They have every amenity you could dream of. They've got, valet parking, security, 24-hour door staff. They've got cold storage if you've got groceries getting dropped off, multiple gyms, rooftop decks with multiple, grilling and cooking areas. I've even seen saltwater pools in some of these buildings. And then if you go up into Nob Hill, for example, they have 100-plus-year-old buildings with really old elevators that take a lot of maintenance. They have a lot of brass that needs to be polished. The whole building looks just absolutely immaculate. So there is a lot of maintenance for those type of buildings. But the majority of first-time buyers, for example, they want a simple, clean HOA. They want to pay like $250 a month. They understand that there's not going to be much of a reserve and it's not going to be professionally managed. So they're going to have to come up with the money and split the cost of any kind of work that's going to be done. But, just a couple $100 a month to pay for garbage and gardening and, water, and they'll pay for all their own expenses after that. But if you're just buying a single family home and it's got good electrical in it, a good electrical system, yeah, your annual insurance is going to be like $3,000 a month. And if you're buying a condo and an HOA that already has building insurance, all you need is walls in insurance or HO6 insurance. Yeah, that's going to be like $1,000 a year. Now, a listing that I just sold, the buyer did not have insurance lined up. We almost had to extend escrow. They waited till the very last day to figure out their insurance because the home had old electrical, but it was hands down the best offer we had. It was clean, it was cash. It was a quick close and nobody wanted to come up to that price point. So we had to just take it. The reason I say that is because in San Francisco, the highest offer does not win. This is a good tip for home buyers. You need the best offer, and the best offer means it's going to be quick, it's going to be clean, and it's going to be high. The price is going to be high. But if I have 5 offers on the table and one of them says, hey, I've already got insurance lined up, I'm already pre-approved with the bank, I'm already fully underwritten, we can close quick, or even if it's cash, those offers are going to win, even if they're not as high as another offer. Because most of the time you can just call them and say, hey, there's somebody beating you, they've got a bunch of contingencies, or they haven't got everything buttoned up. Can you come up to an extra $25,000 or $30,000, match their offer, and we'll take your offer? So what I like to do with my clients is I want to get them fully underwritten from a lender. Not only does that allow them to waive their finance contingency or give them more confidence waiving their finance contingency, it shortens the close of escrow time. I also want to get them set up with insurance beforehand. You can call insurance companies. You've already got the inspection report, so you know the age of the roof, you know, the plumbing, electrical, all that good stuff. You can call, you know, the age of the house and everything. So when I submit offers for my clients, I always try to give the best offer, not just the highest offer, because we end up outright winning more oftentimes. I get calls all the time from listing agents to say, hey, somebody's a little bit ahead of you, but you are the cleanest, quickest, smoothest offer. If you can come up a little bit, then we'll take your offer. And one last note on HOAs. There's no HOAs on single family homes in San Francisco. I mean, there might be for 1 out of 100 homes, but it's usually like a couple $100 a year to help maintain the big fountain in the neighborhood or the tennis courts. Back in 2021, nobody cared about what was permitted or unpermitted. Homes were just flying off the shelves. Everybody was getting into bidding wars. It did not matter. But things are a lot more calm now. Things are starting to recalibrate. I've got a buyer that I helped just get into contract right now on a $2 million single family home in the inner Sunset. The home that we offered on before, we lost out. We were about $50K below because their whole lower level was not permitted. I brought in a contractor, a GC that I've worked with on permitting homes specifically. Brought him in. He gave an estimate of about $100,000 to $150,000, depending on what the inspector is going to call out on that. So we put in a lower offer and we ended up losing on it. And the home that we're in contract with right now, the whole home is fully permitted. Check the 3R report. Everything's legal. And my buyer was much more confident going in at a much higher offer, and we ended up winning because of it. By the way, if you need any help with referrals or recommendations for any kind of handyman, general contractors, any kind of specialists, painters, plumbers, electricians, hit me up. My contact information is in the description below. Like I said before, we do a lot of renovation work, a lot of touch-up work on our listings before we put them on the market. So all these contacts we have is a really good resource for my buyers. And if you've got a bunch of illegal space, like a lower level, and you want to get that legalized and permitted, which you don't have to, you know, the saying goes, for every 100 houses in San Francisco, 101 of them have illegal space. So not everybody cares, not everyone wants to legalize it. But if you do, here's a good horror story. One that I just had recently, had a GC walk through, and he could not tell if the plumbing was, you know, fully permitted and up to date. There was no plumbing permits that were pulled. So worst case scenario is, and it looked really great down there at the lower level. So worst case scenario is you have an inspector come in and you don't know which inspector you're going to get. You don't know how tough they are. You don't know what they're going to do that day. Sometimes they'll just go and they'll look and they'll be like, okay, everything's fine. But sometimes they'll say, no, you need to go down. You need to dig under the tile in the bathroom. I need to look at the plumbing and look at the pipes. And sometimes they'll make you rip all the pipes out. So if you're looking to legalize a lower level and it looks pretty simple and you're like, okay, yeah, $25,000, $50,000 job. Well, that could easily turn into a $150,000 job if they have to rip all the drywall out, rip all the pipes out. And you just never know what you're going to get with the inspector. You don't know how deep they're going to want to dig. Now, one thing to remember, the home only needs to be up to code based on the year it was built. So if the home was built in 1950 and nothing was ever done on it, nobody's going to come in and say, oh, it's 2025, it's 2026 now. You need to be up to this code. These stairs are too steep, or, these doors are not fire code. That's not going to happen. Now, when you do want to do renovations, when you want to do an addition somewhere in a lower level, they're going to make you bring everything there up to code. If you want to swap out windows, then those need to be up to code, not based on the year that the home was built or not how old that those windows are, but up to the year 2026, 2027, whatever year you're going to do that work, you need to follow that code. The 3R report is the most important report when you're looking for evidence of this. It tells you every single time that a permit was requested for and pulled and the work was completed. It's also public record, so you can just go online, and if you just go to Google and type in San Francisco address, look up building department, you can type an address in and it shows you all the permits that were pulled, all the complaints, and it will show you which permits were completed and which ones were just left open and canceled. One thing you won't find an official record of is the square footage or bedrooms and bathrooms. It's really hard to find, especially square footage. In fact, the standard San Francisco purchase order agreement says that you, the buyer, have to do your own due diligence and verify the bedroom, bathroom square footage count, because the seller does not make a formal statement about exactly how much square foot is on there. Or square feet are in the house. You can go look on the tax record and it could say 2,000 square feet, but you cannot hold a seller to that. What I was told about this was many decades ago, there was just a lot of litigation and back and forth and fighting over square footage because the contractor measures it differently than the planning department, than the tax team does. Every single person that looks at a house has a different standard, and there was just a lot of arguing. And so now there's just this disclaimer that says, hey, buyer, you figure it out on your own. So it's really important for the bank appraiser to see which square footage is legal and what square footage is not legal. Make sure your agent understands this too, because you could be buying a 3,000 square foot house, but only 1,500 square feet of it is legal. And you put an offer in based on comparable sales of other homes in the neighborhood that recently sold that had 3,000 square foot of legal space. Well, that bank appraiser is going to come in and say, nope, this is a 1,500 square foot house and it's not worth $3 million. It's worth $1.5 million. Which takes me to the last point I want to bring up before we get to the next section. And that is, make sure that you are hiring a real estate agent that is a San Francisco expert. Don't go with a generalist. Don't go with an agent that knows the whole Bay Area. Like, I was Bay Area born and raised. I was born in Santa Clara. I know the entire Bay Area, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to represent a buyer in Santa Clara or Orinda. So just avoid the real estate generalist and make sure you find someone that is hyper niche and specialize in that particular city, especially when it comes to San Francisco. You'd be surprised how many Bay Area agents refer clients to me when they want to buy something in San Francisco, because they know this all too well themselves. They're like, I am not going in that city. I'm not doing anything with that, because it is its own beast. That there's just so much nuance here and it's so different. Even out-of-town lenders drop the ball. And if you have an out-of-town lender that you're writing an offer with and you have a mortgage with them, it's going to make your offer look weak, because everybody knows how insane and crazy all the logistics are, and having that super niche, hyper specific San Francisco specialist by your side, or that whole team of specialists, is extremely important. There are some people that want to pay zero HOAs. I just sold a condo near DuBose Park. We had a $0 a month HOA and no reserves. It was a duplex, and the owners just split the landscaping bill every month, and they split the water bill, and everything else was on their own. And they treated it like a single family home. You know, if the roof needs to get repaired, then they say, okay, let's just have somebody come out and give us some estimates and we'll split it. Now, those are the informal HOAs. Those are just the duplexes, the triplexes, the flats. So it's an old Victorian or Edwardian mansion that's now been split up into 2, 3, or 4 different units. When you get into the mid or high-rise units that have, 10, 20, 50 different units, those are always going to be professionally managed. They're always going to have a large reserve. They're going to have $1 million, $2 million, $3 million reserve. And they're going to do reserve studies to make sure that they have enough money in the reserves to pay for everything over the course of the next 3 to 5 years. They already know they need X amount of dollars for paint. They need this much money for a new roof every 20 years. They know they need annual elevator inspection and maintenance costs. Everything they have is perfectly itemized out. And so they know exactly when their reserves are going to run out. They know exactly how much they need to increase the reserves on an annual basis. And this is where having a local lender really comes in handy, because if you have an out-of-town lender and they see a professionally managed HOA with low reserves, or they see like a 2-unit flat with no reserves, are going to freak out. And even some of the local banks, if you're in a 50-unit high-rise and they have done a reserve study and it says that they're $500,000 short and they're going to not have enough money in 6 years from now or in 4 years from now, and that the HOA is in the middle of getting a vote to increase everybody's monthly dues, even a local lender is going to freak out about that. So this is another thing that you really want to do and vet before you start writing offers, especially if you're going to go in clean with no contingencies. You really need to, and it goes back to having an agent that is hyper specialized in San Francisco that understands this. So you want to really analyze their budget and analyze their recent reserve study and just check the overall health of that HOA and the reserve. Oh, another little bonus tip I just thought of that I'll give you before we move on. Lenders do not like if there's any litigation on a building either. More times than not, this is just an HOA member that had a slip, trip, or fall, and they're trying to get the HOA to cover the medical bills because something they didn't do right or they didn't fix or clean up. And these things could take 6 months, 12 months, 2 years. And this really negatively affects anybody that has their unit on the market, someone that's thinking about selling their home. And it's going to take a cash offer to close that deal because you will not find a bank that is okay with this because they just don't know the risk. Is the HOA that's got a $2 million reserve, are they going to pay out a $30,000 bill or a $300,000 bill? Is that going to deplete the reserves? Are they going to lose the case badly? These are all question marks that banks do not want to touch. Local lenders do have lists of buildings that they just say like, do not loan on these buildings. And I've got some folks that I can call, even if we're not using some of these lenders, I can make a phone call with some lenders that I'm close to and just say, hey, can you check this address real quick? Make sure it's not on your do not lend list. But most of the time it's because there's litigation or low reserves or some kind of other issue with the HOA that the bank just doesn't want to deal with. Okay, drive through the Marina District and tell me how many Victorian or Edwardian homes that you see. You are not going to find any of them because they did not make it through the last 2 major earthquakes because it is all on liquefaction. That is all landfill up there. So check this out here. You want to make sure you're looking at this liquefaction zone map that the city has. And if you're buying here on landfill liquefaction, you definitely need earthquake insurance. If a big earthquake hits and you're in these gray areas, it could turn liquid. But then if you go to the top of Pacific Heights, you're on solid bedrock and you cannot count how many 100-plus-year-old buildings that are still standing strong. They have powered through the 2 major earthquakes. Nothing happened. I mean, you'll find a lot of buildings built in the late 1800s that are still up there. So I'm not recommending you go without earthquake insurance, but it's something that's not a slam dunk. It's something that you have to consider if you want to do or not. Now, earthquake insurance is usually about the same as your general building insurance, the annual premiums, So let's say you're buying a 2,000 square foot single family home. Building insurance is going to be, let's say, $300 a year. Well, the earthquake insurance is going to be about the same. Now, you also need to consider if the building has been seismically retrofitted or not. If you're looking at single family homes or duplexes or triplexes, that usually just means that there was bracing added, bracing or bolting. And basically what that is they take the house, the framing of the house and brace it and bolt it up against the foundation. Bigger, older buildings require a lot more work. And I'm not going to get into soft story buildings right now in this video. I've talked about it in other videos, but those are even more of an earthquake liability. And if you know what's going on in Los Angeles right now with earthquakes and with their retrofitting program with soft story, you know that there are hundreds of buildings in San Francisco that could have a 6-figure retrofit expense if San Francisco passes the laws that LA has right now, and it's probably likely going to happen. If you're new here, hey, my name is Erik Thrum. I'm with City Real Estate, a locally owned boutique. And if you're thinking about buying these types of homes, check the description for all my contact information. It's got my email, my personal cell, so you can call or text me anytime. I meet a lot of my clients right here on YouTube and TikTok, and I would love to connect with you as well. So this next one, I want to show you this layout right here. Now, this is a hack that you can get into a premium neighborhood for a couple $100,000 less. Let's say you're trying to get into a neighborhood with a median sale price of $3 million for a single family. You could get a house for 2.25 or 2.5 if it has an odd layout or just kind of a weird floor plan. And so let me show you this one when I talk about it. This is not a bad floor plan. This one, it's not perfect. It's not ideal. And that's why I wanted to show it to you. So this is a lower level condo. The entry is right here on the right. And then you keep going down the hallway, or you can take a left into the living room. Now, there are French doors between the living room and the first bedroom. Not a lot of people like that. I think the unit above this one actually sealed that off. So that's a completely sealed off bedroom. And then you have to just go up the hallway a little bit to turn to get into that bedroom. Some people prefer that. and then you go up a little farther and there's an enclosed dining room, and then there's a bedroom that you walk through. So we swapped those around. We made that dining room into a bedroom. It's a legal bedroom. It's got a window, closet, and then above is just a den. It's just an open room. And you could put a wall there and, have a general contractor come in and make that a third bedroom, or you can just leave it as an open dining room or the den, because you don't really need a dining room, because when you go up to the top of the house, you have the kitchen and the dining room. So this is a pretty good layout overall, especially when it comes to flats. So when you see these Victorian condos at Edwardians, you have to understand that this used to be a big mansion at some point. This was a huge house, and the lower levels were usually the receiving room, and then the family room were the terms. And then you would have a dining room and a kitchen, and then upstairs were all the bedrooms. So the upstairs layouts are usually a little bit cleaner and smarter than the lower levels now that they've been converted into multiple homes, multiple condos. Now the real funky layouts, I don't have an example of one right now, but like single family homes, they're not as funky as this one here. But basically, like when you go to the garage level, you walk in and there's the parking garage, and then there's a door, and you go in and there's a huge, kitchenette, family room. And then there's a bedroom behind there, which is fine. That's great. But then the big sliding glass door to get to the yard is that way. So there's really no access from the street to the garage to the backyard. You have to go through somebody's bedroom, which is not ideal. Sometimes you have to go through a bedroom to get to another bedroom. Oftentimes these are unpermitted or illegal space, and people just don't like that. And so when you have these odd floor plans, it's usually a way for you to sneak into a neighborhood for well below the median sale price. But if you're looking for a highly functional layout, something that really makes sense, that's got a good vibe, really good feng shui, and you're happy to pay, the full price for a home, then you really want to avoid this kind of a thing. And a good tip for this is when you're on your Zillows or your Redfins, whatever you want, if they don't have a layout like this, it's because the layout's not great. They don't want to showcase that. And I don't want to say that the photographers are playing tricks on you, but because that's a photographer's job, is to make that home look immaculate. So if you're looking at photos, they look fantastic. There is no layout online, and you're having a hard time kind of understanding how the layout is, just be prepared for the worst. Definitely go and check it out before you get your hopes up, because it could have some kind of an ugly situation going on there. Okay, this last one I want to talk about is the disclosure packet. I want you to be 100% familiar with disclosure packets before we start writing an offer. The worst thing that could happen is you want to write an offer on a house and you have not ever looked at one disclosure packet before. So check this out here. This is what a disclosure packet is going to look like. It is going to have 50 plus PDFs, and it is going to take you 3, 4, 5 hours to read the whole thing. And don't shove it into chat. You need to read all this stuff. However, if you look through all these, the vast majority of these are all going to be exactly the same. So by the time you look at that second one, especially by the time you look at that third one, where before it took you 4 hours to read the first time, that second or third time might only take you 30 minutes, 15 minutes to read through, because I don't need to read the San Francisco water energy conservation requirements again, or I don't need to read this 50-page document about how earthquakes are bad. And you start to understand I really need to read this agent disclosure. That's something. This gas and mold notice, I don't need to read. It's exactly what it looked like before. Oh, but the home inspection here and the pest inspection, those are very important. I definitely need to read those. And obviously, if you have a really good agent, then they're going to read everything as well, and they're going to take notes and let you know about all the red flags that they saw. What I like to do for my clients, I think only one time ever I remember actually on a call going through every single one of these documents and explaining what they all are and going through them together. 99% of the time, I work mostly with tech, very high functioning, intelligent people, autonomous. They want to kind of do their own thing. So this is usually how we do it. I'll say, hey, here's the disclosure packet. Check it out. Read everything. Write down any questions you have, and we'll review all of them together, and I'll explain either what a document is or why that document even exists in there. But more times than not, they understand that, and they just have questions about the specific items that are listed in the disclosures. And then I take a lot of notes too on things that I think are really important that they need to know. And then we jump on a discovery call and share our thoughts and questions and go from there. So that's everything I wanted to go over. I hope I didn't bore you too much, but this is really important information that you know. So thank you for watching my video all the way through. If you have any other questions, check the description below. It's got my email, it's got my cell. Like I said, that's my personal cell, so I'll answer right away. You can call me, text me. I help folks just like you every single day that I meet right here on YouTube and over on TikTok. And I would love to help you as well. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.